Hey everyone, I did a lot of videos on combat, examples, making it tougher, making it better, whatever you want to say, and sometimes how to make it faster. So I want to continue to talk a little bit about how to keep the flow going into combat with the Savage Worlds, one of the best games today. Hey everyone, it's Carl with Tabletop Tango. Look at the bubbles, do the stuff. We'd love your support. We'd love your subscriptions. We're going for a milestone so we can have a celebratory live stream. That'd be awesome. Also, would love to see some comments in the video on this video because I want to learn with you. How do you keep combat flowing? How do you keep it moving faster? All that good stuff. So anyway, that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk about keeping the flow going in combat. First one that I have is kind of minimize the number of enemy groups that have an action card. Now that puts the Game Master a little bit at a disadvantage because they have fewer action cards, less likely to get a higher card or a joker so that some of their folks can go. But if you're trying to keep the flow going, you're trying to make things go fast, minimizing the number of cards dealt out, and that means the Game Master can really help that out. And then just take that one group and do it and do their action and keep things moving. Now, you usually would, related groups, you'd group them together, your mooks, your extras, and have just one card for them. I'm saying that if you've got a couple of other groups, maybe you pull them together and keep things moving a little faster that way. Another one that I've read that actually turns out to help out, you wouldn't necessarily think so, but use GM bennies for re-rolling damage and stuff like that and not use it for soaking. So nothing just grinds combat to a halt when the Game Master starts having to soak damage and re-roll for trying to keep their bad guy alive. You know, keep it going. Only use those bennies to really attack and push forward your agenda. I've talked about that before when we talk about making combat more interesting and tougher. So it actually really works. If you don't soak, that slows things down if you soak. So another great idea. Another thing that you can do when you have large groups of extras is take advantage of what's called group roles. Now, if you've got a lot of extras that are surrounding players or are just moving on the battlefield, it takes a lot of time to move each one, to roll each combat roll. And usually they're not getting, since they're extras, they're not getting a wild die, so their chance of hitting is a lot less, and so you're doing a lot of rolling for a little bit of success, and it can really bog things down. So if you take advantage of group rolls, which is for trait rolls, and what that does is allow a group of extras to roll their trait roll with a wild die to see if they succeed as a group. So you can take advantage of that in combat. Now, it's not really designed around combat, so there's really nothing in the rules that talk about how much damage you would be doing if your group roll succeeded. And so I think that's up to you as a Game Master. So for me, usually I'm using this for things like maybe a zombie apocalypse where the players are getting surrounded by zombies and I don't want to roll a bazillion dice. So I use a group roll, and then I say, well, if I succeed, maybe about 25% of the zombies around them actually succeeded and get that damage roll. You could do just one damage roll for the whole group if you think that chances are only one would hit anyway. So it's a way of really kind of making that extras move faster as far as combat goes. One of the things that's a house rule Eric and I talked about in a video is declaring the number of actions but not being specific. How does that help with the flow? It helps because players don't have to think too much about what they're going to do up front. They can do it as the action unfolds on their turn. So what I mean by that is Eric and I have a house rule where if you're doing multi-actions, you just declare that you're doing two actions. You don't say, okay, I'm doing two actions, I'm attacking this guy, and then I'm attacking this guy, or I'm doing a test, and now I'm doing an attack. We just say, hey, tell us how many actions you're doing, and then we'll kind of go with the flow as you're deciding what you're going to do. You may think that makes things slower as opposed to faster, but it really helps players to not overanalyze. At least my players, maybe your players are different, but it helps with them not sit there and go, okay, well, if I attack this guy and I succeed, then that means I could attack another guy. But what if I don't succeed with the closer guy? So I should use 2 attacks on that guy. What am I doing here? And so it really gives them sometimes vapor lock for some of my players. And so just to keep it going, you say how many attacks or how many actions. I'm doing 2 actions. Okay, I'm going to attack this first guy. Great, you attack him, you miss. Okay, you want to do it again? Great, attack him and see if you happen again. Or it does really help with the flow, surprisingly enough. So another one here is for tougher monsters, instead of giving them super high toughness where the players are just going to keep grinding attacks and attacks and hitting, but then not doing any damage, maybe just give them the resilient monster ability so that they're tougher, but their toughness isn't what makes them tougher. It's just takes a little bit more time to get it done. It makes the players a little more happy, and it actually, I think, makes things go quicker because you're not just frustratingly hitting and wasting those hits. And so you've got that extra roll for a hit, and then you do the toughness roll, and that's misses, or that does not get beyond the toughness. And so you just keep running that scenario over and over again. So that actually does help. For arcane background players, I always suggest that they keep a favorites list. So cool thing about arcane backgrounds is the customization you can make on powers. I can pick modifiers, I can do universal modifiers, I can tailor it the way I want this power to be. So that's cool, but it can also slow things down. So I always recommend to players have kind of what they like, have that top 10 list of powers and how they use them. And you'll find that the players tend to use things the same often. Like I'm using blast with selective, with maximum power, with fatigue, and I do that all the time. And so let's have that written down. Let's know that that's what we're going to do. We already know the power points. We don't have to sit there and do the math. So that helps out a lot too if your players tend to use the same thing over and over again. Just like D&D, now this one is universal. Just like D&D, have players ready up front. They know where their action card is. They know where they are, and unless they went the last round and they got a joker this round, and now they really have to think about what they're doing. Are they going to go right away? Are they going to wait to go later? They should be able to understand what they're trying to do before, and usually they've already talked this out. They already know strategy, so give them a countdown. Give them, time to make a choice, but not all the time in the world to sit there and think through all scenarios and have huge conversations with the other players. I don't mind that metagaming personally and letting players talk to each other about things, but if it's getting to the point where all the players are going, well, what if I do a test and then you do this and this other person does this, and then what about this? Oh, what we should do is I should go on hold and then you should do that. At some point you have to say, come on, you're really slowing things down. Let's make a quick decision. Remember, these combat rounds are fast. They're going quick. So same recommendation you have in D&D makes sense in Savage Worlds as well. If combat is taking a long time, and it's a big combat, and they've taken out the wild card, and there's still a lot of mooks left, and you just don't want to waste the time going through this. So this suggestion doesn't keep the flow going, but it really cuts short combats that just are taking a lot of time. Finish up with a quick encounter. So quick encounters allow 1 die roll to decide things. Usually you think of them as being, if I run into a combat scenario and I don't really want to play it out, I'm going to do a quick encounter, see what happens. If you're towards the end of combat and you just don't want to keep going because time is running out, quick encounter can help with that, save things. Now, I would tweak it a little bit, because if it's really the players are just trying to take advantage of just getting done with that last little bit, mopping up, you might just say, hey, you mop them up. They're all mooks, no problem. If they have taken out 2 of the wild cards, there's 1 left, and they're really just going to jump on them. Okay, let's maybe do a quick encounter, close that off so that, tell me, are you going to try to capture them? Are you going to try to kill them? So that we can just get through that. The only problem with quick encounters is for deadly ones, players could pick up a wound, and if they're really routing the bad guys, they probably feel like, hey, I wouldn't have got a wound, so this isn't as cool as I'd like to. But if you're using it to finish up an encounter, they're going to have that opportunity to do healing right after, and so that gives a little more. I don't know what the term would be, but kind of gives a little more deadliness to that last come out of the encounter a little battered, and then let the players heal up, feel like they got something done, and we didn't spend all our time going through every last little token on the board. Now, here's some tools that you can take advantage of. I call them tools to keep things flowing that aren't kind of related to rules. Make sure you use status tokens and markers for minis. Really slows things down when somebody's saying, hey, I'm going to go after this guy, and you go, well, remember they're shaken, or the player's about to go and they forgot they're shaken, or the players want to go after the most vulnerable opponent, but they don't know which one that is because we haven't kept track of who's vulnerable. We don't have it on the board. So really those markers really are useful, and take advantage of them. Second one, this has been talked about a million times, have 2 decks for combat so that when you run out one deck, you have another one ready to go. Have players shuffle the decks while they're playing so you don't have to do it as a game master, and give them a Benny if they're the ones shuffling the deck for you. Very classic technique there. Also, I would suggest getting one of those raise calculator sheets. Peg's got them, they're online. You can do the math in your head. It's not that hard, but when you're in a heat of combat and things are going fast, sometimes it's easier to look at the raise calculator and quickly determine how things are. Another technique that I heard is for the creatures, for the Game Master creatures, is when you're putting a stat block down, like next to toughness, put down a few raises next to toughness. So if it's a toughness is 11, then we put a 15, and then we go that, so that when the players attack and they get a roll, you immediately have it right on the sheet, right on the stat block, what a raise would be against that toughness. So that's a pretty cool idea. I like that idea. Last one, really, I think everybody has a million sets of dice. Have your dice out. Keep a few extra D6s around, a couple extra whatever your primary weapon is or your primary trait. So if you have a fighting of D8, have a couple of D8s around, have a couple of D6s around for your wild die. So you roll one, you get it, you can roll the other one quick, and then roll the other one quick, and in the in-person kind of game, instead of picking up and rolling, much faster. So just take advantage of it. And of course, have your wild die different color than your other D6. So naturally makes sense, right? So that's it. Obviously not an exhaustive list. Would love to see your comments on some things that actually make combat run a little smoother in your games. Not just faster, but smoother. Keeps the continuity or the flow going. So this is Carl with Tabletop Tango. Look at the bubbles, do the stuff. We will catch you in the next video.
Savage World, one of the best games today. Savage World, Benny, enhance my play. Oh, Savage World, different setting any day.